Welcome to the podcast Encrypted Minds, a podcast about entrepreneurs in high tech. And this time I have Leo. Leo is working in Biotech as a CEO of TIRmed Pharma. So I'm very happy that you're here, Leo. Please, can you introduce yourself?
Thank you, Edwin. It's great to be here. So my name is Leo Holmgren. I'm an American-born, Swedish-raised entrepreneur. My background, as you will probably hear, it's a hodgepodge of a dialect. So I was born in the US, lived in Sweden, and academically from the UK. So academically from Warwick Business School and London Business School. Previously, before I became invested in biotech, I worked at the Boston Consulting Group with mainly M&A and go-to-market strategies. But life science has been a very, very keen interest of mine. So approximately 5 years ago, I had the opportunity of joining a small startup in Stockholm called TIRmed Pharma. And I have been on the journey ever since with the company. And we've been growing steadily from a very small one to a not so small one, but still a really small one.
A small one compared to the behemoth in the industry?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's always a bigger fish.
There's always a bigger fish, yes. What is it that TIRmed does, Leo?
So we have an entirely novel modality. So exactly what that means. We have a small DNA molecule which has the potential of shifting the immune balance within our bodies. So exactly what that means is that we can calm down our immune system when it's overreactive. And that can lead to prolonged inhibition of autoimmune diseases. And we're primarily right now targeting skin diseases. So atopic dermatitis, or eczema, if you will, is the lead indication that we're targeting. So what the big elevator pitch here is that if you apply, we can apply this 5 times on the skin, so every other day approximately, and that will subsequently lead to a prolonged reduction in your symptoms. So you can go without having any rashes, any pruritus for up to 12, 15 months.
What does it mean for your potential clients?
So what that essentially means, if you look at the market and what you treat atopic dermatitis with today, it's you can say that there are 2 different, very broad segments,
Yes.
but they all go under the umbrella of immunosuppressants. So what you do is that you suppress your immune system to get rid of the itch and get rid of the inflammation. So either you have topical treatments, creams, essentially, that you apply once or twice daily. They work quite well, but they come with side effects. But you have to do this continuously, and patients do not want to treat themselves every day. That's very clear. And in the other bucket, for those with really severe diseases, you have biologics, so injectables that you inject maybe every other week or once a month. Or you have pills with systemic immune suppressants. And both of these come with significant side effects. I think that some of the previously thought to be the next generation in the treatments called JAK inhibitors, they have come now with black box warnings, which essentially translates into potential cancer risk. So this is a huge market with several treatments, but they all have one thing in common, that you need continuous treatments and they come with side effects. And that's where we want to come in as a treatment where you don't have to treat yourself that often, but also don't have to have these side effects that are usually associated with these treatments.
Yeah. Well, this is something that is quite promising. How does your go-to-market model looks like? Is it do you distribute this kind of? Do you distribute it yourself?
So we have a very traditional business model for small pharmaceutical companies. So you have to look at the entire environment of pharmaceuticals when you consider these treatments and also these diseases. So this is a $20 billion market. And there are, like we said, big fishes here. And there's a long time to develop. So as I'm sure you're familiar with, you have phase 1 trial and you go up to phase 3 and then you go for regulatory approval. And once you have a regulatory approval, you are exposed to the marketing and the sales capacities of Merck, Pfizer, of Leo Pharma. So realistically speaking, and since you're also on the clock, you have a certain time for your patent. And once that patent expires, you're exposed to other competitors using your treatment. So there is essentially only one avenue right now for the if you want to treat large diseases where other large players are involved with, and that is partnering with the big companies. So how the environment has developed is that the smaller companies that develop from phase 1 to phase 3, they commonly focus either on very small diseases, or their business model is based upon partnering with a larger company to leverage their sales capacities to expand on the global market. And we position ourselves in the latter.
All right. What is the goal for TIRmed? Because this is high risk.
Yeah,
High
that's
risk business.
the understatement of the century, I think. I've been thinking about that. If you want to go into life science, you either have to be very confident or very, very risk taking, or maybe a combination of the both. But I think that fundamentally we believe in this technology. I mean, if you don't believe in the technology, it's going to be impossible, because it's a huge risk. And what we aspire to is that I mean, I myself have suffered from atopic dermatitis as a child. I am conscious about the need, and I see across with my peers, both industrial and also in my social group, the extreme pain of this disease. I think I spoke to a patient a couple of months back, and I was informed that she boils a kettle of hot water before she goes to bed and scalds her arms, because that pain is better than the itch that she otherwise suffers. She can't sleep during the night unless she scalds herself. It's a huge problem, and it's still unmet, even though that there are many treatments out there. And I think that exposing yourself to those kind of patient stories, it makes you want to push through the risk. So of course there's a financial component if you are successful, but ultimately that is not what will bring you to work in. It's definitely these patient stories and seeing actual physical proof of efficacy is what brings you through these darker periods when you're in significant uncertainty.
Yeah, this is something I can imagine. Is this also the reason why your team members are joining TIRmed? Because they have the shared ideology also to solving these pains with patients? Is
Yeah,
it the motivation mainly?
I would say it's the main driver. I think that it's a combination of being technically curious. You want to be part of something that works.
Yes.
And and I think that many people have seen in our team have seen the data and have become extremely curious about bringing something entirely new to the market, because this is the first time anyone has done this kind of molecule ever before. So we are the first in class for this. That really raises people's attention. But secondly, absolutely, combining that technology, it's entirely novel, with an unmet need, and seeing the pain of the patients, that combination makes people want to join the team for sure.
For you as an entrepreneur, you're the CEO of TIRmed. So that means you share at least the same ideology also to cure this patient's needs. But you also have the burden to make it successful, because the team is looking at you as a CEO. So may I ask about your decision also to join TIRmed, coming from a highly respected consulting group, jumping into completely new? Why did you make the decision?
I mean, I would say firstly overconfidence, maybe.
Yeah.
I think that now, like, in all sincerity, I think that I think you need to have a degree of overconfidence in this industry. You have to sort of look away from the risks in order to be successful, because otherwise, I mean, if you just look statistically, it's virtually impossible to bring a product to market. But I also think that what I lacked, if we start with where I came from, what I lacked was the ownership and the risk and the equity at stake, that you actually are the owner of your own deliverable. And that's something I found the work that I undertook at BCG incredibly value adding and motivating. But even if I invested maybe 20 or 30 or 200% extra than I would that I could do, I would not yield any benefit from that. Whereas at TIRmed, everything I do has tangible physical impact on the company, and that's something that I carry with me every single day, and that makes me want to push the needle forward to a much larger extent. So yeah, I mean, it's a risky move. I'm not gonna shy away from that, but it's also incredibly rewarding. And even if it is risky, when you're, changing the dogma or proving everyone else that it is actually a viable strategy that we are undertaking. It's an indescribable feeling to, move against the current and yet succeeding.
That is something I can imagine. I had another guest on my podcast, an entrepreneur who created something out of nothing, and it is now successfully launched. And he mentioned you have to be delusional.
Yeah. So maybe it's a nut house in the life sciences conference.
Yes, all right, not but all right. This is about yourself. This is your personal motivation. So, but you also as a CEO, you have your entire team with you. You have to motivate those people as well because it is for them a high risk as well. How do you do this with this on a daily basis? Being yourself, pushing forwards, but also motivating your team.
So I think that it's a fair question. I think that there are two components mainly to it. Firstly, we as a small company, if we just look at the financial component first, we will not be able to offer the same kind of salaries that which you would receive in Merck or in Pfizer, for example. So there are two ways that we can offer a value add compared to them. And firstly, there's flexibility. We are a very mobile company, so we can offer flexibility which you would not most likely not expect in a larger firm with a more rigid corporate structure. So that allows for greater exposure to family, planning your work life, etc. And the second point is equity. I think that is the great driver of people wanting to join scale-ups or startups. To begin with, you need to provide real material stake in the company so that we are financially aligned with the future value of the company. I think that is the primary driver on the financial component. But the second one is the mission statement, like we were talking about earlier. Now I'm speaking for myself, and I hope my colleagues feel the same way, but that we are on a mission here to do something extraordinary, and we have the potential of changing millions of people's lives. So the 1 in 10 in Europe suffer from this disease. It can impact your life to the same extent as diabetes can. So it's one of those unsung, unknown diseases, but however is one of the absolutely most common diseases we have. So it won't kill you, but it will enable you, ensure that you will not sleep nor be able to work. So that mission statement is motivating. And if you combine that with something that is surprisingly able to receive tangible results from your studies, which sounds obvious maybe if coming from outside of life science, but actually is not. That really stimulates motivation.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I must say also from your personality, you have a lot of positivity to share because you get...
You have to. Yeah.
But this positive energy it's a little bit contagious because you take people with you with your enthusiasm and see where you're heading. So if I may just talk a little bit about your personal journey as a CEO of this company. You mentioned the goal of the company, why you're all doing this, why you're building this company. What are the things you're quite satisfied with? What are your triumphs from the past years? You said, yes, this is something I accomplished. What made you happy as an entrepreneur?
So I think that if I look back, a bit retrospectively first and foremost, and tying back to the naivety and the overconfidence, I was probably, if not the youngest CEO in life science in Sweden when I started. And coming from a business background, I definitely did not know what I was getting myself into. So I think that from a personal journey standpoint, there has been a vertical learning curve in everything from immunology to CMC and toxicology, which I didn't expect to be as rewarding as it would have been. So from a personal development standpoint, that has been incredibly rewarding. But more physically, looking at the company, and there are a set of steps that I see as has been sort of breakthrough results for the company that I'm extraordinarily proud of. First of all, the molecule that we are looking at, this is I mean, we were people in our industry compared this to. I mean, we applied this on the skin, right? So it has to penetrate the skin. But we had industrial colleagues that compared it to trying to get a brick through your skin. It's a huge molecule, this one. So how would this even be possible? It's technically impossible. But we could actually prove and develop a formulation that stimulated uptake through the skin, and we could prove that in a very well established model. So it was an incredibly proud moment where we could display this to our industrial colleagues and see the look on their faces. So I think that's one component. And the second one being that we found a way to prove efficacy in an animal model. So an animal study, which was not only helpful for the animals, so we could undertake a clinical study in animals, but it also constituted a commercial opportunity. So now we know that it works really well, just as we had hoped for, in animals as well. So we've expanded, so we're not just a human pharma company as well, but we were also becoming a veterinary company. And that to me has been incredibly rewarding.
Yeah, I must say maybe this is your character, because this rewarding is also team effort. It's not about your personal challenge. Is this something? Does it say something about you as a CEO that is more about the team itself than about you as a person? Because I did not hear any personal triumphs.
No, but I agree with you on that, and this is not me saying it, but I definitely subscribe to it. That the goal of the CEO is to hire people smarter than you, and then just ensure that they have the tools and the leeway to do what they're best at. So if I'm the dumbest in the room, then that's the best room to be in. So I definitely should attribute a lot of the success to the team. It would have been impossible to undertake this in a solo environment. So yeah, no, but I definitely do not subscribe this to be a self-proclaimed success. This is a team effort.
Nice, that's very kind of you. And about the challenges, because you were not naive when stepping into this position as a CEO.
No.
There were some things where that you did not make you very happy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that to begin with, I learned something recently, which has been unfortunately very true. I thought it was ridiculous to begin with, and that was from a much more senior colleague. When you budget for a project in life science, you write everything down, you add 10%, you review everything you've done. Once you're happy with your budget, you double it, and then you're almost there.
Okay.
And that has been very true, unfortunately, that no budget survives first contact with reality. And you also have to assume that it will be taking 50% more time than you would usually would have expected. So that's something that's inherent in the business. It's a technically difficult business. So there will be things that arises that you couldn't account for. But at the same time, if you have some time to take a step back, you usually find things that ultimately will improve rather than reduce the value of your asset and your project. But with that said, something that was really difficult, taking this into consideration. So if we go back a couple of years, I think this has been gradually been improving now, but we're still in a dark area. From 2022 and forwards, the capital markets in Sweden, I think in Europe in general, has been incredibly difficult for life science. I mean, there is a huge risk aversion becoming introduced. The willingness to accept pre-revenue and negative cash flow companies were definitely moving away. We were definitely moving away from that. And what is a life science company is in early stage, if not pre-revenue, and definitely not positive cash flows. And so what we had to do essentially was that we had to, I wouldn't say want to close down, but essentially freeze every single operation for 1 year and went on full survival mode. And essentially only just protecting the patents, protecting the key assets, and hoping for spring in the capital markets. And that eventually became a strategy that was worthwhile, but we lost a lot of time as a result of it.
Well, you were just you needed venture capitalists also to invest in your company. Was it what you were doing that year when you froze all the operations, also doing presentations to VCs all over the place to get the investments done?
Absolutely. So, I mean, that's what we wanted to have. I mean, our key operations in parallel. Well, I was out on a roadshow to present, but it became evidently clear that given the time and the decision time for venture capitalists at the time, and decision being almost always no, we realized that we have to account for this to be a prolonged effort, that this could take 3 years. And given the current runway at the time, we were unable then to proceed with some of the key steps that we wanted to. So we took a strategic decision, essentially freezing the project and only exclusively focus on raising capital. And that was a humbling experience, since I mean, like I mentioned, we were not the hottest type of company at that time, so it took 5 to 10 times more effort than I would have anticipated previously.
But you succeeded.
We succeeded eventually. I mean, with grit and stubbornness, we finally managed to raise the sufficient capital to undertake, I mean, everything that we have to do in the next 2 or 3 years.
And how come that you could convince some of the VCs to step in? What in retrospective, what happened?
So I think that there was one key turning point, which now in hindsight was a sort of a serendipity event, and that was that we became connected with a fund, which is also how would you describe it? I mean, it's a corporate similar to corporate finance firm, which also invests in life sciences. It's a well-renowned firm, and they select 5 companies a year approximately to take under their wing, and we became one of them. And that seal of approval and their initial due diligence enabled other investors to become willing to invest. We received a foot in the door, so to speak, through this company. And once we had that invitation to these key investors within their network, but also outside, all of a sudden the ball started to rolling. And for anyone who has raised capital before, you know that the first million is always the hardest. Once you have a set of investors on the balance sheet or on the cap table, things usually start moving. So that was essentially what happened.
Is it also the case that those people who are invested also have skin in the game? So you need to update them. You need to see progress. But you feel backed up by those organizations.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. So I've been talking to a lot of founders and entrepreneurs in the past couple of months in pharmacy, in biotech, but also in artificial intelligence. And what I learned from those conversations is that there are big venture capital. There is capital available, but mainly for AI. It is so weird. I've been talking to high-tech companies who get no funding anymore because they don't do anything with AI, or they could not articulate enough that they're working with AI. But all the AI startups, yeah, they're basically swimming in the money. And now you see the big enterprises are pushing hundreds of billions of dollars to each other, while a big part of the startups cannot get their hands on the capital. So with regards of AI, we've been, during the preparation, we spoke also about the use of AI. Is this something that TIRmed is also using in the development of the molecule?
Yeah, so we are actually. So I mean, we can probably talk at length on AI, but I think that it's just extraordinary. Whereas with some companies being valued more than the entire pharma industry globally. But
That's what I mean.
let's. But if we look at the actual use case, I think that there's a huge potential of AI within new drug development. I think firstly, that was the Nobel Prize last year with Google, where you can simulate different proteins against a particular target, and what would have taken months or even years now can take an afternoon to simulate and identify new potential targets for different receptors. So that I think that's amazing. I think that's where we've come furthest when it comes to the adoption of AI. So the early screening of new molecules. However, there's I mean, this is coming from my perception, so I don't. So like a grain of salt to the veracity of this. But what I'm seeing is that we're still very very early in the adoption of AI across drug development. It's a heavy regulatory field, so that with that naturally it comes slow adoption rate as well because people are really risk averse. With that said, where I'm seeing the most use cases right now, at least from our end, is the streamlining of operation with the regulatory authorities and synthesizing key information data and cross-comparing that to the guidelines of regulatory authorities. Because ultimately, what you usually do right now is that you have an expert, which is super expensive, who scrolls through all of your data and cross-compare that to your guidelines. That is a task which is well suited for an AI who can read everything that you've undertaken in seconds instead of taking weeks on that. So what I'm seeing is that you're streamlining a lot of regulatory interactions via AI. I think that's where the primary use case is right now. I think that when you look at exchanging full-on animal studies with AI, we're just simply not there yet. I think that we will eventually. But the reason why we're not there is because we don't have the full data of how each separate step in our bodies or in animals for that matter interact with each other. So we need that model still to simulate that to ensure that we have a safe and efficacious treatment.
Yeah, that is interesting. So if I hear a couple of things on your statement, is that first of all, AI for research and development is not there yet. Because the models need to be improved. Uh, but you also say that the AI can help with the regulatory aspects of your business. But it also means that the regulators also need to adopt AI.
Not necessarily. I think that they definitely probably should. I think that there's huge use case for them as well. I mean, there are some regulatory authorities that are faster than others. Let's put it like that. And I definitely see the use case of expediting the process
Yes.
of interacting with them, and which could have a huge use case. But I mean, theoretically speaking, they could use the same process as ever. But it would be immensely helpful for them to actually leverage AI. But I also want to caveat here, that, at least for the time being, we are not at the point where it is substituting experts. Rather, it's enabling experts to utilize their expertise on the right thing. So instead of scrolling through huge amounts of data, it's clearly synthesized so they can make an expert decision based on the clear takeaways of specific studies cross-compared to the specific regulatory guideline that it refers to. So it's about like leveraging it to make most use of your time today, at least.
Yeah, I agree. I see it in my business as well. I use AI. I know the marketing sales process quite well. And if you utilize the correct AI models, it can improve the workflow.
Yeah,
But if you have no idea what you're doing, it's making things worse. So
absolutely.
I see what you mean. So with regards to the regulatory pressure, so I've been mainly working in cybersecurity that is highly regulated, not only for not from the bad actors, they are not regulated at all. Uh, but we have a governmental organization working on privacy and data protection. In your industry, it's the same. It is highly regulated. How do you deal with certain things if you're trying to invent new cures? Eventually, you will have to cross some borders.
Yeah. So I think one important dynamic to consider when it comes to life science is, I mean, it's it's regulatory guidelines, and that's a
Guidelines, yes.
nuance that's important to consider here. So it's not in the same strict aspect as we have as laws in society. You need to follow the guidelines, but there is a degree of tolerability to them. So that's where it becomes not necessarily easier. It might actually becomes harder, but gives you flexibility at least. So you need an individual who's very able to interpret the guidelines and can argue for why you meet those set guidelines. And we've been speaking back and forth internally more philosophically about what would happen if we had reduced regulatory less requirements on us, would we move faster? I think that what we've concluded, at least, is that we would probably be able to bring more treatments to the market, but we would also have more casualties during the way. So I know that some countries have, for example, reduced, which is an honorable goal of reducing the use of animals in initial studies. But what you get instead is that you don't have enough data to understand the safety profile of that particular treatment. So what the offset then is that you will have severe side effects or even casualties in clinical trials. And that is an ethical balance for people to juggle. But that is, for example, a result of a less stringent regulatory framework for initial safety trials. And the same can be applied across the regulatory framework. There's a reason why we have these. It's to ensure that we know what we're doing and that we have a framework to gauging safety. That's ultimately the goal of the regulatory guidelines.
That is exactly the same in cybersecurity as well. But from a philosophical, from your point of view,
Yeah.
take the philosophy with you. If you may decide for yourself from a personal level, do you, so with all the other aspects of your business as well, would you argue for more regulate, or would you argue to keep it as is? Or would you accept more casualties to get to your goals more faster?
I don't think that, it's a very difficult question to answer, but if we just stick to the regulatory guidelines around safety here, I do not think we want to have more casualties, human casualties in our clinical trials. I think that the long-term ramifications of that will be less trust towards big pharma, and we're already suffering from a reduction in faith in medicine globally.
Yes.
So I think that it will do more damage than it will otherwise. But I also think that we should keep a moderate balance. I think that the key word here again is interpretation and guideline rather than laws, because there are some molecules that demand a higher degree of safety evaluation before they go to human trials because they are dangerous. But maybe they have a huge potential, so we should not discount it. But we need to be sure that they are worth the risk. Whereas there will be some molecules being clearly biased, but like ours, that may not require as much because we know that this category ultimately it's impossible for it to have those kinds of ramifications. So I think there needs to be a gray zone. And this is again where clear interaction with the regulatory authority is so important.
Yeah.
So I think that it was a murky answer to your question, but I think that demands some dynamics to it.
I can imagine. And it is also a difficult question to answer. It's even impossible to answer.
Yeah. But I also think that if you want to look at maybe some less, naturally also important, but if you look at developing a supply chain for new medicines, I think that there could be areas where we could probably be a bit more lenient, because the reason why I'm saying this because the capital requirements to set up
Yes.
a supply chain in order to try this in humans is more expensive than it is to actually undertaking the clinical trials themselves. So I would hope that there could be a middle way where one could reduce the lenient, it would be more lenient, and maybe allow a smallest trial so that we can receive a vector of whether it works or not.
Yes.
Similar to you would have an MVP in software development, and I think that that's something that's clearly lacking in life science right now. We have the worst possible business model where we make $1 billion bet for something that will be on the market in 10 years time, and between there we will have negative cash flows and we are exposed to competition at the same time. So finding a gateway there to introduce an MVP would be incredibly valuable, I think.
Yeah, that is something. Would you advise the younger Leo to just accept his job?
Yeah, that's a very good question. It's from day to day that depends. For the time being, yes, I would probably have said no last year, but now we're actually moving and making extraordinary progress. So, but I think that comes with the territory. I'm thinking about startups in general now. If you want to have it safe and cushy, there's always a corporate job for you. But if you want to have the hills and troughs, you also have to take the troughs in order to get the big boosts when it's going well. So yes, I think ultimately yes, I would still have gone down this route. It's incredibly rewarding, for being terrifying and many sleepless nights and probably more work than I would have thought. Ultimately, I'm hoping that it will be worth this while.
It surely will be, but eventually for yourself, you have been growing tremendously as a person. What are your personal goals? Aside from TIRmed Pharma?
So right now, that my personal goal right now, completely moving away now from the business. There are three steps in my life right now. It's one, get a dog. Me and my fiance have been looking into buying a golden retriever for some time. Getting a bit more daily exercise. The second one is marry that particular fiance within in a year or so. And the last one is I've been picking up kite surfing recently. Which is, you strap yourself to a sail and you put on a board on your feet, and then you hope for the best. That the current goal there is to be able to jump 5 meters. I'm currently the worst kite surfer in my friend group with a pretty significant margin. So trying to reduce that margin would be ideal.
Reduce that margin. So these are personal goals, right?
Yes.
For your private life. So for now, business is focused on TIRmed Pharma.
Yeah.
And these are the other goals.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Leo, I really enjoy this conversation. Is there something you would like to add to the podcast for now?
No, I think that sometimes when you talk about life science now, I'm doing it a bit cheeky, but I would never want to discourage anyone from joining the life science industry. I mean, practically speaking, it's an enormously growing market. The commercial potential is, in my opinion, some of the most lucrative areas you can possibly be in if you are successful. And at the same time, you're making tangible impact in patients' lives who you will have first-hand contact with. And those engagements are, it's indescribable. So I would wholeheartedly recommend it to anyone who's curious about the industry.
Yeah. Well, I think this is some nice last words, and I enjoyed. I suggest also to stay in touch, Leo, also about all your future engagements and the successful path of TIRmed Pharma. I would like to thank you just for attending the podcast. And I'll say have a great day, and we speak soon.
Yeah, thank you very much, Edwin. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Bye.
Bye.